Hi, welcome to today's lesson about Life of Pi. We're going to be reading chapter 15 to 17 today. If you like what you're seeing, please will you like and subscribe, and then we'll help you with the rest of the lessons. Okay, so chapter 15. His house is a temple. In the entrance halls hangs a framed picture of Ganesha, he of the elephant head. He sits facing out rosy-colored, pot-bellied, crowned and smiling, three hands holding various objects, the fourth held palm out in the blessing and in greeting. He is the Lord, overcomer of obstacles, the God of good luck and the God of wisdom, the patron of learning, simpatico in the highest. He brings a smile to my lips. At his feet is an attentive rat. His vehicle, because when Lord Ganesha travels, he travels atop a rat. On the wall opposite the picture is a plain wooden cross. In the living room, on a table next to the sofa, there is a small framed picture of the Virgin Mary of Guadalupe. Flowers tumbling from her open mantle. Next to it is a framed photo of the black-robed Kaaba, holiest sanctum of Islam, surrounded by a 10,000-fold swirl of the faithful. On the television set is a brass statue of Shiva as a Nataraja, the cosmic lord of the dance, who controls the motions of the universe and the flow of time. He dances on the demonic ignorance for his forearms held in the choreographic gesture, one foot on the demon's back and the one other lifted in the air. When Nataraja brings his foot down, they say time will stop. There is a shrine in the kitchen. It is set in the cupboard, whose door he has replaced with a fretwork arch. The arch partly hides the yellow light bulb that in the evenings lights up the shrine. Two pictures rest behind a small altar. To the side, Ganesha again, and in the center, a larger frame smiling and a blue-skinned Krishna playing the flute. Both have smudges of red and yellow powder on the glass over their foreheads. In a copper dish on the altar are three silver myrtus representations. He identifies them for me with a pointed finger. Lakshmi, Shakti, the mother goddess, in the form of Parvati and Krishna, this time as a playful baby crawling on all fours. In between the goddesses is a stone Shiva Yoni Linga, which looks like half avocado, with a phallic stump rising from its center. A Hindu symbol representing the male and female energies of the universe. To one side of the dish is a small conch shell set on a pedestal. If you don't know what a conch shell is, I'll give it to you now. Give me a moment. Okay, so a conch shell is basically a seashell that you can blow on. If you've watched any movies where they put up a big shell next to their ear, that is usually a conch shell. So if you don't know what that is, there you go. And to the other, a small silver handbell. Grains of rice lie about, as well as a flower, just beginning to wilt. Many of these items are anointed with dabs of yellow and red. On the shelf below, various articles of devotion, a breaker full of water, a copper spoon, a lamp with a wick coiled in oil, sticks of incense and small bowls full of red powder, yellow powder, grains of rice and lumps of sugar. There is another Virgin Mary in the dining room. Upstairs in his office, there is a brass Ganesha sitting cross-legged next to the computer, a wooden Christ on the cross from Brazil on a wall, and a green prayer rug in the corner. The Christ is expressive. He suffers. The prayer rug lies in its own clear space. Next to it, on the low bookstand, is a book covered by a cloth. At the center of the cloth is a single Arabic word, intricately woven, 4 letters, and Aleph, 2 lambs, and a ha, the word God in Arabic. The book on the bedside table is the chapter 16. We are all born like Catholics. Aren't we in limbo without religion until some figure introduces us to God? After the meeting and the matter ends, for most of us. If there is a change, it is usually for the lesser rather than the greater. Many people seem to lose God along life's way. That was not my case. The figure in question for me was an older sister of mother's of a more traditional mind who brought me to a temple when I was a small baby. Auntie Rohini was delighted to meet the newborn nephew and thought she would include Mother Goddess in the delight. It will be his symbolic first outing, she said. It's a samskara, symbolic indeed. We were in Madurai. I was the fresh veteran of a 7-hour train journey. No matter. Off we went on this Hindu rite of passage. Mother carrying me, Auntie propelling her. I have no conscious memory of the first go-round in the temple, but some smell of incense, some play of light and shadow, some flame, some burst of color, something of the sultriness and mystery of the place must have stayed with me. A germ of religious exaltation, no bigger than a mustard seed, was sown in me and left to germinate. It has never stopped growing since that day. I am a Hindu because of sculptured cones of red kumkum powder and a basket of yellow turmeric nuggets, because of the garlands of the flowers and the pieces of broken coconut, because of the clanging of bells to announce one's arrival to God, because of the whine of the reedy nada swaram and the beating of the drums, because of the patter of the bare feet against stone floors, down dark corridors, pierced by shafts of sunlight, because of the fragrance of incense, because of the flames of arati lamps circling in the darkness, because of the bhajans being sweetly sung, because of elephants standing around to bless, because of colorful murals telling colorful stories, because of foreheads carrying various signified the same word faith. I became loyal to these sense impressions even before I knew what they meant or what they were for. It is my heart that commands me so. I feel at home in a Hindu temple. I am aware of presence, not personal the way that we usually feel presence, but something larger. My heart still skips a beat when I catch sight of the Murti, a god residing in the inner sanctum of temple. Truly, I am in a sacred cosmic womb, a place where everything is born, and it is my sweet luck to behold its living core. My hands naturally come together in a reverent worship. I hunger for prasad, that sugary offering to God that comes back to us as a sanctified treat. My palms need to feel the heat of a hallowed flame whose blessing I bring to my eyes and forehead. But religion is more than rite and ritual. There is the rite and ritual stand for. Here too I am a Hindu. The universe makes sense to me through Hindu eyes. There is Brahman, the world soul, the sustaining frame upon which is woven, warp and weft, the cloth of being, with all its decorative elements of space and time. There is Brahman, Nirguna without qualities, which lies beyond understanding, beyond description, beyond approach. With our poor words, we sew a suit for it, one truth, unity, absolute, ultimate reality, ground of being, and try make it to fit. But Brahman Naguni always bursts the seams. We were left speechless. But there is also Brahman Saguna, with qualities where the suit fits. Now we call it Shiva, Krishna, Shakti, Ganesha. We can approach it with some understanding. We can discern certain attributes, loving, merciful, frightening, and we feel the gentle pull of relationship. Brahman Saguna is Brahman made manifest to our limited senses. Brahman expressed not only in the gods but in humans, animals, trees, in a handful of earth, for everything has a trace of the divine in it. The truth of life is that Brahman is no different from Atman, the spiritual force within us, what you might call the soul. The individual soul touches upon the world. Soul like a well reaches for the water table. That which sustains the universe beyond throughout the language, and that which is at the core of us struggles for expressions is the same thing. The finite within the infinite without the finite. If you ask me how Brahman and Atman relate precisely, I would say in the same way the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit relate, mysteriously, but one thing is clear. Atman seeks to realize Brahman, to be united with the Absolute, and travels in the life on a pilgrimage where it is born and dies, and is born again and dies again, and again and again, until it manages to shed the sheaths that imprison it here below. The paths to liberation are numerous, but the bank along the way is always the same, the bank of karma, where the liberation accounts of each of us is credited or debited, depending on our actions. This is, in a holy nutshell, is Hinduism. I have been a Hindu all my life. With its notions in mind, I see my place in the universe, but we should not cling. Plague upon fundamentalists and literalists, I am reminded of a story of Lord Krishna when he was a cowherd. Every night he invites the milkmaids to dance with him in the forest. They come and they dance. The night is dark and the fire in their midst roars and crackles. The beat of the music gets ever faster. The girls dance and dance and dance with their sweet lord, who has made himself so abundant as to be the arms of each and every girl. But the moment the girls become possessive, the moment each one imagines that Krishna is her partner alone, and he vanishes. So it is that we should not be jealous with God. I know a woman here in Toronto who is very dear to my heart. She was my foster mother. I call her Auntie G, and she likes that. She is the quibuscure. I cannot pronounce that. Though she has lived in Toronto for over 30 years, her French-speaking mind still slips on occasion on the understanding of English sounds. And so, when she first heard a Hare Krishnas, she didn't hear right. She heard hairless Christians. And that is what they were to her for many, many years. So basically, she's saying if she didn't hear Hare Krishna, she heard hairless Christians. So she didn't really get the full story on that. When I corrected her, I told her that in fact she was not so wrong, that Hindus in their capacity for love are indeed hairless Christians, just as Muslims in the way they see God in everything. Just as Muslims in the way they see God in everything are bearded Hindus and Christians in their devotion to God are hat-wearing Muslims. Chapter 17. First wonder goes deepest, wonder after that fits in the impression made by the first. I owe the Hinduism the original landscape of my religious imagination, those towns and rivers, battlefields and forests, holy mountains and deep seas where gods, saints, villains, and ordinary people rub shoulders, and in doing so, define who and why we are. I first heard of the tremendous cosmic might of the loving kindness in this Hindu land. It was Lord Krishna speaking. I heard him and I followed him, and in the wisdom and perfect love, Lord Krishna led me to meet one man. I was 14 years old and one well-content Hindu on a holiday when I met Jesus Christ. It was not often that Father took time off from the zoo, but one of the times he did, we went to Mannar, just over the Kerala. Mannar is a small hill station surrounded by some of the highest tea estates in the world. It was nearly May and the monsoon hadn't come yet. The monsoon, if you don't know, is basically a time of the year when there is hectic amounts of rain, like for days and days and days. Sometimes, obviously, it's very strong wind and rain. So they obviously were discussing about when that monsoon would come. Carrying on. The plains of Tamil Nadu were beastly hot. We made it to Mannar after a winding 5-hour car ride from Madurai. The coolness was as pleasing as having mint in your mouth. We did the tourist thing. We visited a Tata tea factory where we enjoyed a boat ride on a lake. We toured cattle breeding center. We fed salt to some Nilgiri tars of species of wild goats in a national park. We have some in our zoo as well. You should come to the Pondicherry, said father to some of the Swiss tourists. Ravi and I went for walks in the tea estates near town. It was all an excuse to keep our lethargy a little busy. So basically now they're getting tired. By late afternoon, father and mother were settled in the tea room of our comfortable hotel as two cats sunning themselves at the window. So basically now they're relaxing. Mother read while father chatted with the fellow guests. There are 3 hills with Manar. They don't bear comparison with the tall hills and mountains, who might call them that, surrounded the town. But I noticed the first morning, as we were having breakfast, that they did stand out in one way. On each stood a god house. The hill on the right, across the river from the hotel, had a Hindu temple high on the side. The hill in the middle, further away, held a mosque, while the hill on the left was crowned with a Christian church. On our 4th day in Manar, as the afternoon was coming to an end, I stood on the hill on the left. Despite attending a nominally Christian school, I had not yet been inside a church, and I wasn't about to dare the deed now. I knew very little about the religion. It had a reputation for few gods and great violence, but good schools. I walked around the church. It was a building unremittingly unrevealing of what it held inside, with thick, featureless walls, pale blue in the color of and high, narrow windows impossible to look in through. A fortress I came upon the rectory. The door was open. I hid around the corner to look upon the scene. To the left of the door was a small board with the words parish priest and assistant priest on it. Next to each was a small sliding block. Both the priest and his assistant were in. The board informed me in gold letters, which I could plainly see. One priest was working in his office, his back turned to the bay windows, while the other was seated on a bench at a round table in the large vestibule that evidently functioned as a room for receiving visitors. So basically he was having a look around, even though he was busy peering around the area. He sat facing the door and the windows, a book in his hands, a Bible, I presume. He read a little, looked up, read a little more, looked up again. It was done in a way that was leisurely, yet alert and composed. So he might have been just reading and then thinking about something. After some minutes, he closed the book and he folded his hands together on the table and sat there, his expression serene, showing neither expectation nor resignation. The vestibule had clean white walls. The table and benches were a dark wood. The priest was dressed in a white cassock. Was all neat, plain and simple. I was filled with a sense of peace, but more than setting, what arrested me was my intuitive understanding that there was their open, patient in case anyone should want to talk to him. A problem of the soul, a heaviness of the heart, a darkness of the conscience. He would listen with love. He was a man whose profession it was to love, and he would offer comfort and guidance to the best of his ability. I was moved. What I had before my eyes stole into my heart and thrilled me. He got up. I thought he might slide his block over, but he didn't. He retreated further into the rectory. That's all, leaving the door between the vestibule and the next room as open as the outside door. I noted this, how both doors were wide open. Clearly, he and his colleague were still available. I walked away and I dared. I entered the church. My stomach was in knots. I was terrified when I would meet a Christian who would shout at me, "What are you doing here? How dare you enter the sacred place, you defiler? Get out right now." There was none of that. There was no one, and a little to be understood. I advanced and observed the inner sanctum. There was a painting. Was this Murti? Something about the human sacrifice, an angry God who had to be appeased with blood, dazed women staring up in the air, and fat babies with tiny flying wings about, charismatic bird. Which one of these was the God? To the side of the sanctum was a painted wooden sculpture. The victim again, bruised and bleeding in bold colors. I stared at his knees. They were badly scraped. The pink skin was peeled back and looked like the petals of a flower, revealing kneecaps that were fire engine red. It was hard to connect this torture scene with the priest in the rectory. The next day, at around the same time, I let myself in. Catholics have a reputation for severity, for judgment that comes down heavily. My experience with the Father Martin was not at all like that. He was very kind. He served me tea and biscuits in a tea set that tinkled and rattled at every touch. He treated me like a grown-up, and he told me a story. Or rather, since Christians are so fond of capital letters in a story, and what a story. The first thing that drew me in was disbelief. What? Humanity sins, but it's God's Son who pays the price? I tried to imagine Father saying to me, Piscine, a lion slipped into the llama pen, and today and killed 2 llamas. Yesterday, another one killed a black buck. Last week, 2 of them ate the camel. The week before, it was painted storks and the grey herons. And who's to say for the sure who snapped on our golden agouti? The situation has become intolerable. Something must be done. I have decided that the only way the lions can atone for their sins is if I feed you to them. Yes, Father, that would be the right logical thing to do. Give me a moment to wash up. Hallelujah, my son. Hallelujah, Father. What a downright weird story. What a peculiar psychology. I asked for another story, one that I might find more satisfying. Surely this religion had more than one story in its bag of religions, abound with stories. But Father Martin made me understand that the stories that came before it and many were simply prologue to the Christians. Their religion had one story, and to it they came back again and again, over and over. It was a story enough for them. I was quiet that evening at the hotel. That a god should put up with adversity, I could understand. The gods of Hinduism face their fair share of thieves, bullies, kidnappers, and usurpers. What is the Ramayana but the account of one long, bad day for Rama? Adversity, yes. Reversals of fortune, yes. Treachery, yes. But humiliation? Death? I couldn't imagine Lord Krishna consenting to be stripped naked, whipped, mocked, dragged through the streets, and to top it off, crucified, and at the hand of their mere humans to boot. I'd never heard of a Hindu god dying. Brahman revealed did not go for the death. Devils and monsters did, as did mortals. By the thousands and millions that, what they were there for, matter too fell away. But divinity should not be lightened by death. It's wrong. The world's soul cannot die, even in the one contained part of it. I was wrong of this Christian God to let his avatar die. That is a tantamount to letting a part of himself die. For if the Son is to die, it cannot be fake. If God on the cross is God shaming a human tragedy, it turns the passion of Christ into the farce of Christ. The death of the Son must be real. Father Martin assured me that it was. But once a dead God, always a dead God, even resurrected, the Son must have the taste of death forever in his mouth. The Trinity must be tainted by it. There must be a certain stench at the right hand of God, the Father. The horror must be real. Why would God wish upon himself? Why not leave death to the mortals? Why make dirty what is beautiful, spoil what is perfect? Love, that is what Martin's answer was. And what about Son's deportment? There is a story of baby Krishna wrongly accused by his friends of eating a bit of dirt. His foster mother, Yashoda, comes up to him with wagging finger. "You shouldn't eat dirt, you naughty boy," she scolds him. But I haven't, says the unchallenged lord of all and everything in sport disguised as a frightened human child. Tut, tut, open your mouth, orders Yashoda. Krishna does as he is told. He opens his mouth and Yashoda gasps. He sees Krishna's mouth, the whole complete, entire, timeless universe, all the stars and planets of space, and the distance between them, all the lands and seas of the earth, and the life in them. She sees all the days of yesterday and all the days of tomorrow. She sees all the ideas and all the emotions, all pity, all hope, and 3 strands of matter. Not a pebble, candle, creature, village, or galaxy is missing, including herself and every bit of dirt in its truthful place. My lord, you can close your mouth, she says reverently. There is a story of Vishnu incarnated as Vamana, the dwarf. He asks a demon king, Bali, only as much land as he can cover in 3 strides. Bali laughs at this runt of a suitor and his puny request. He consents. Immediately, Vishnu takes on his full cosmic size. With 1 stride, he covers the earth. With the 2nd, the heavens. And the 3rd, he boots Bali into the netherworld. Even Rama, that most human of the avatars who had to be reminded of his divinity when he grew long-faced over the struggle to get Sita, his wife, back from Ravana. Evil king of Lanka was no slouch. No spindly cross would have kept him down when pushed. Now, when he's talking about that spindly cross, he's talking about the cross that Jesus was put on. When push came to shove, he transcended his limited human frame with strength no man could have and weapons no man could handle. That is God, as God should be, with shine and power and might. Such can rescue and save and put down evil. The sun, on the other hand, who goes hungry, who suffers from thirst, who gets tired, who is sad, who is anxious, who is heckled and harassed, who has to put up with the followers who don't get it, and opponents who don't respect him. What kind of God is that? It's a God on too human a scale, that's what. There are miracles, yes, mostly of the medical nature, a few to satisfy hungry stomachs. At best, a storm is tempered. Water is briefly walked upon. That if magic, it is minor magic, on the order of card tricks. Any Hindu god can do 100 times better. This sun is a god who spent most of his time telling stories and talking. The sun is a god who walked, a pedestrian god, and in a hot place. Meaning they're looking at this being in Egypt. At that wide a stride like human stride, the sandal reaching the above rocks along the way. And when he splurged on the transportation, it was a regular donkey. This sun is a god who died in 3 hours with moans, gasps, and laments. What kind of God is that? What is there to inspire in the sun? Love, said Father Martin. And this sun appears only once, long ago, far among an obscure tribe in a backwater West Asia on the confines of a long-vanished empire, is done away with before he has a single grey hair on his head, leaves a single descendant, only scattered, partial testimony. His complete works doodles in the dirt. Wait a minute. This is more than Brahman, with a serious case of stage fright. This is Brahman selfish. This is Brahman ungenerous and unfair. This is Brahman practically unmanifest. If Brahman is to have only one son, he must be abundant as Krishna with the milkmaids. No? What could justify such divine stinginess? Love? Repeated Father Martin. I'll stick to my Krishna, thank you very much. I find divinity utterly compelling. You can keep your sweaty, chatty son to yourself. That was how I met the troublesome rabbi of long ago. With disbelief and annoyance, I had tea with the Father Martin 3 days in a row. Each time, as a teacup rattled against the saucer, as spoon tinkled against the edge of a cup, I asked questions. The answers always were the same. He bothered me. The sun, every day I burned with greater indignation against him, found more flaws to him. He's petulant. It's morning in Bethany and the God is hungry. God wants his breakfast. He comes to a fig tree. It's not the season for figs, so the tree has no figs. God is peeved. The son mutters, "May you never bear fruit again." And instantly the fig tree withers. So says Matthew, backed up by Mark. I ask you, is it a fig tree's fault that it's not the season for figs? What kind of thing is that to do an innocent fig tree? Wither it instantly? I couldn't get him out of my head. I still can't. I spent 3 solid days thinking about him. The more he bothered me, the less I could forget about him. And yet more I learned about him, the less I wanted to leave him. On our last day, a few hours before we were leaving Manu, I hurried up the hill on the left. It strikes me now as a typical Christian scene. Christianity is a religion in a rush. Look at the world created in 7 days, even a symbolic level. That's creation in a frenzy. To one born in a religion where the battles of a single soul can be a relay race, run over many centuries in an innumerable generations passing along the baton, the quick resolution of Christianity has a dizzy effect. If Hinduism flows placidly like the Ganges, then Christianity bustles like Toronto at the rush hour. It is a religion as swift as a swallow, as urgent as ambulance. It turns on a dime, expresses itself in the instant. In a moment, you are lost or saved. Christianity stretches back through the ages, but in essence, it exists only at one time, right now. I booted up that hill, through Father Martin was not in. Alas, his block was slid over. Thank God he was in. Short of breath, I said, "Father, I would like to be Christian, please." He smiled. "You already are, I seen in your heart. Whoever meets Christ in good faith is a Christian. Here in Manar you met Christ." He patted me on the head. It was more of a thump, actually. His hand went boom, boom, boom on my head. I thought I would explode with joy. "When you come back, we'll have a tea again, my son." "Yes, Father." It was a good smile he gave me, the smile of Christ. I entered the church without fear this time, for it was now my house too. I offered prayers to Christ, who is alive. Then I raced down the hill on the left and raced up the hill to the right. Offer thanks to Lord Krishna for having put Jesus of Nazareth, whose humanity I found so compelling in my way. So that is it for today. And later on, I will discuss those 3 chapters with you in order to analyze what they're about. Thank you again and have an awesome day. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye for now.